Okay, I think we're good. We good? Are we live? Yeah. They moved the thing. It's in a different part of the screen now. That's fun. Alrighty. Hello. You are listening to the 4-1 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. We are your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. My name is Robert Winfrey, and I am your host per usual. So thank you. Much appreciated for anyone listening, watching, live after the fact, whenever. It's all good to me. So thank you very much. What do we got tonight? Well, we're gonna review UFC Fight Night 268. Yeah, the Moreno and Kavanagh card was all right, not great. We're gonna preview UFC 326, which certainly has a main event that almost impossible to see go sideways. Of course, I said that about the first time those two fought, and then we had a neck injury to Charles Oliveira in like 90 seconds or something. Yeah, that was a letdown. But it is what it is as far as that goes. And then we will talk about news. UFC 327 got fully announced, and there's some stuff to talk about with that one, and then some other general fight stuff, but nothing too serious. So that's what we've got going on. So, yeah. Anyway, of course, you can interact with the product, is always appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever works for you. This is on YouTube now only, so that's kind of all we've got. I used to say star rating, written review, whatever's applicable to your podcast platform of choice, but well, for reasons now we're only here. So that's what's going on tonight. All right, let's jump into this, shall we? That's the intro out of the way, and you are up there now. Okay. So UFC Fight Night 268. The UFC was back in Mexico City. Before I get into the predictions and how that went, um, needs to be said about the Mexico City thing. They did not sell out the MCDX Arena, I think is what it was. It's covering up the venue, and I don't care that much. They had an attendance of, okay, that I do care about. So you move. An announced gate, and attendance, not a gate, an attendance of 16,454. That's about 3,500 people shy of that building's capacity. They had it configured for about a 20,000 square foot, 20,000 fans. I'm all over the place. Can you tell it's late? So they didn't sell out. That's the first time they have not sold out that arena. Kind of a big deal. The Mexican market is, I think, a tad depressed. And frankly, headlining with Brandon Moreno 3 times in a row. I like Brandon Moreno, but you're kind of killing the market. From Sal, not on Spotify anymore. I don't think so, unless this automatically gets uploaded over there. There were some decisions made above my particular pay grade related to that, so now it's just YouTube exclusive. It could probably go over there, but again, I don't monkey with too much of that stuff. So if it doesn't go over there automatically, it doesn't. And if you have complaints, you can direct them to the management over at 411. I'm happy to be over here. It doesn't matter to me that much where I am as far as that goes, but check it. Yeah. So that's just where that is. So thanks for following me over here. If you still want to go audio only, you can, of course, minimize the window and not have to look at my, face. But so, yeah, the UFC did not get a sellout here. That's a relevant thing, I think, to pay attention to. Okay, so as for the predictions, we had a good night. We went, what, 11-2? Yeah, 11-2. What did I get wrong? Main event. And, yeah, Bobby Green, King Green, excuse me. I don't mind getting the main event wrong. I should have given Kavanagh maybe a little more credit than I did, but I should have got that Green and Zellhuber fight right. Daniel Zellhuber, he's got some ability and some tools, but boy, has he struggled. He can't put it together. I mean, he just lost to Michael Johnson, and I should have given that a lot more credence than I did. The only other one that I think is notable, I did go with Tarin. This would be Rahina. So she did come in on short notice, but I picked her instead of sticking with Karaskaita for 2 reasons. First one, this was a catch weight. if she'd had to cut all the way down to flyweight, I would have gone with Kavanagh. I think that extra 5 pounds she didn't have to cut on short notice was a big deal. That's fine for her, by the way. If you can't make the weight on short notice, then don't say you can make the weight. Going for a catchweight thing here is perfectly fine for her, but it does need to be said. Like, again, if that had been all the way down, I might have changed my pick there. The other thing was I listened to a few people talk about her. She got brought up by they had like Rodrigo Campo guest spotted on Morning Combat. He talked a little bit about her. I didn't talk with anybody. I saw Caposa talk a little bit about her. It was enough to make me go, okay, not having to make all the way to the weight. And Kavanagh has a couple of skills, but I was willing to take a flyer on that one. So I went with her. I was very prepared to be wrong about that, but it paid off. Those are the only two I got. So the only two I got wrong in main event, and then Green and Zellhuber. And the Zellhuber one, like I should have got Green on that one. I should have. Like Daniel Zellhuber is just not the kind of guy that's going to beat Bobby Green or King Green. Excuse me. You can tell how long I've been. Man, I remember when he was like Hood style, then Poetry in Motion. Like I've followed Green for a while, so should have got that one right. That one bothers me. But 11-2 is certainly nothing to sneeze at. That brings us to 50-14 on the year. It's about back on track. I want to get 400 correct this year, so I'd like to average about 10 a card that I get right. So after 8-6 last week, 11-2 this week felt pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. But that is the predictions as far as that goes. So as for the fights themselves, got to talk a little bit about the main event, obviously. Lonnie Kavanagh on short notice defeats Brandon Moreno, unanimous decision, 149-46, 248-47. Okay, doing this live, I got the scoring wrong. Let me put it this way. The first round, I categorically got wrong. I gave the first round to Moreno doing it live, and on rewatch, just flat out got that wrong. That happens sometimes. All I can do is sit here and admit that I got it wrong because my scorecard doesn't matter. Here's the thing. I gave 4 and 5 to Moreno, and 5 I'll stand by. 4 I think was just a really close round. Or sorry, yeah, 4 I maybe should have gone the other way, but that one's dicey. So this is one of my big takeaways from this. A couple. One, Brandon Moreno finally really looked worn down here. He's still got some talent. I don't mean to say that Moreno's going to be, a scrub, but I think his days being in the title picture are probably over. So that sucks. He's got a very boxing heavy style, and Lonnie Kavanagh kind of just chews that up. If you're not adding stuff to it, and Moreno's kicking game wasn't really there. He didn't start grappling until later into the fight, which I think was a mistake. His face kind of got jabbed up. The calf kicks were a big deal. Here's the big thing for me. If I'm going to talk about Kavanagh, a big takeaway for him. I still have some questions about how well he holds up down the stretch. He didn't fall apart the way Charles Johnson kind of made him fall apart, but if you look at the way he fought rounds 4 and 5, that was not smart. He let big gaps of time just bleed away from him. Moreno got him against the fence and he pinned him there really effectively. Didn't do a whole lot of damage. I mean, just throwing knees like the thigh and occasionally to the body. But you can't let that much time just go away in MMA while you aren't doing anything. And Lonnie Kavanagh not doing a whole lot there. His pummeling it's clearly a thing he needs to work on. He wasn't great about getting off the fence. He was good about not getting tripped. I don't want to say like this is all doom and gloom, but he got controlled for big stretches of those last 2 rounds. And going into after the first 3, it was 29-28 Kavanagh on all 3 judges' scorecards, which I think is the correct score. Kavanagh won in 2, and Moreno won the 3rd. So you're in a position with 2 more rounds where you can't really afford to drop both of them. Now, maybe he thought he won the third. In fact, I'm pretty sure he thought he won the third. At least his coaches were bigging him up that way. Whether they knew that round probably didn't go their way or not is another question. You tell your fighter what you are going to tell them to get the best performance out of them. Sometimes that's the truth. Sometimes it's not. But that was a big and so he just kind of went like, all right, I don't need to win the last 2 rounds. Turns out you needed to win at least one of them. And fortunately, he did on all 3 scorecards. In fact, and one judge gave him rounds 4 and 5, which is that perfectly understandable. 4 was close. 4 probably should have gone to Kavanagh. 5 could have gone either way. Legitimately, like could have flipped a coin on that one. But just as a fight management decision making thing, if Brandon Moreno was, not quite as worn down, he could have done some damage in those 4th and 5th rounds. Could have or just done enough to win the rounds more decisively. Like if he's got a little bit more it's not ground and pound. If he got a little bit more offense in the clinch when he had Moreno and when he had Kavanagh pinned for that long, you can make a better case for him. He had a pretty decent underhook on usually the right side. His left hand, he's kind of fighting because Kavanagh's got bicep control here, and then head position. He had Kavanagh pinned for long stretches of time. If you're pinned for like 2 minutes at a stretch, just a little bit more offense from Moreno, he could have won those rounds, and then he could have won the fight. Like that's a very real possibility that he was staring down, and it would have been a giant disservice to scoring the fight as a whole. But fights aren't scored as a whole; they're scored round by round, and that's a big deal. So hopefully Kavanagh learns from this. He's young; there's still plenty of time for him to do that, but that was a pretty big takeaway from me. Like he's not actually managing the fight very well. He was not that far away from winding up losing this. I mean, it would have been a travesty to just say like who should have won the fight. He should have. But if you look at how fights are scored and how those last 2 rounds went, that was a lot closer than you might think. Again, just scoring criteria wise. Your eye test and your scoring the fight as a whole, it's not close. But that's not how fights are scored, as previously iterated. So that's a big takeaway from me. But short of that, Kavanagh looked good. He was very well prepared to deal with a lot of what Moreno does, the low kind of crouched over stance. His jab worked. His calf kick was really nice because Moreno's fairly heavy on the lead leg. And did a good job not getting hit super clean. There's a lot good here, especially on short notice. My other big kind of big question for Kavanagh still coming out of this is a little bit cardio related. Now, you might be saying he just went 5 rounds at elevation on short notice. Yes, big improvement from his last one. But the questions around your cardio are not answered just by rounds accumulating or ticking off. It's activity. None of these rounds were super hard. Those weren't easy, don't get me wrong. But I don't think he had to fight consistently at the pace that he had to fight Charles Johnson when they fought. And that's what wore him down. This is a thing that people like when they fight Abu Smagomedov or other people like that. Like, oh, this guy has cardio issues. All I have to do is survive, and then he'll fall apart. Well, yeah, if you make him work. Cardio issues have to be exploited by forcing someone to work. If you let them set a fairly languid pace, a professional can fight a sparring paced bout for 5 rounds without too much difficulty. You have to get them out of that. And frankly, I don't think Moreno did a great job pushing Kavanagh out of the pace he was comfortable at. And that's where you can start to attack someone's cardio, and not just like cardio overall, but like composure under fire, decision making, a lot of stuff. So I do still have some questions around that one, but definitely willing to he's clearly working on it at a minimum. So, but if there is another question mark, it's that one. But not trying to take a dump on the guy. I just look at these things kind of from a critical standpoint. And on the positive, again, he looked good. His offense looked crisp, very, very fast hands. Some smart decision making, especially in the second round. He got Moreno hurt, but didn't overexert himself trying to finish. Really, really overall good performance from Lonnie Kavanagh. Definitely needs to be said there. And again, as for Moreno, he looked like a guy who's had the wars that he's had. I mean, he fought Davison Figueiredo 4 times, and 3 of those are kind of knockdown, drag out affairs. He absolutely went to war with Pantoja. I mean, that fight is nuts. His Royval fight. Royval, right? Double check. Yeah, that Royval fight was not an easy one. He did okay rebounding against Albazi and Ursek, but man, he also didn't have a whole lot for Tatsuro Taira, and that's a non-trivial deal there. So I think, respect to Moreno, 2-time former champion, but I think the mileage has finally caught up with him, and it was overdue. The fact that he didn't sort of, wear down as quickly as a lot of us thought he might, I think is a credit to him, but it started to wear down. It started to wear him down. So in your co-main event, not a whole lot to say here. David Martinez defeats Marlon Vera via unanimous decision in the most predictable way possible, 29-28. Marlon Vera, king of losing the first 2 rounds, winning the third, then losing the fight. That's kind of the story of his career. Dude has one of the best chins in the sport, so he never gets hurt, but he never gets his offense going reliably until the end of, the fight. I don't know if the man just doesn't need to have 2 hard sparring rounds in the back to warm up to get him going or something, but he just never seems to get those first couple of rounds, and he just loses the fights consistently because of it. David Martinez definitely fell off in the third. His movement fell off a little bit. His overall offense just kind of, I don't want to say died, but certainly became much, much more anemic. Much more dangerous in the first couple of rounds. Had some nice counters to high kicks in particular. He'd kind of catch and then kick low with the opposite leg, and then the other hand comes across the top. He got a couple of nice sweeps off, or foot sweep takedowns off of them. So there's still a lot of upside to David Martinez, and the fact that in back-to-back fights he's beaten Rob Font and now Marlon Vera. Unfortunately, maybe for him a little bit, he's only accelerating, and that's fine to a point, but there's still some development in his game that I would like to see. But good win for him. Vera did what Vera does. Martinez did kind of what he does, and there we are. But yeah, Martinez definitely seems to have a problem with the third round at this point. He had a tough third round against Font too. It's not Ige. It wasn't Dan Ige. Yeah, it was Rob Font. I remembered correctly. So good enough fight. Nothing special. Lightweight, yeah, King Green, TKO's Daniel Zellhuber, 4:55 of the second. Classic King Green performance. Hands down, chest out, slick head movement, counter punching, drawing the other guy on, clipping him at it, turning in the pocket. Just, again, classic King Green stuff here. He just beat up Daniel Zellhuber for that entire fight until he got the stoppage. Not in the cage after the fight, but after the fight, he said he wants to fight Michael Chandler at the White House. I could be down for that. 2 veterans, neither guy's really making a title push, but that'd be fun. That'd be a fun fight. So, yeah, go for it. That tracks. Zellhuber, man, he's been a big favorite in 3 of his last losses, including this one. He entered as a non-trivial favorite. I don't want to call the guy just a straight up failure at this point, but some big changes need to happen there, or he's going to wind up in the busted prospect pile, and that is a graveyard if you've never seen it. Some really talented guys that just whatever reason, washed out. So he's definitely got to do some assessment, one way or the other. At flyweight, Edgar Chairez defeated Felipe Bunes via split decision, 29-28. Round 1 to Bunes, no controversy. Round 3 to Chairez, no controversy. Hinges on round 2. I leaned Chairez, but it was a close enough round. Could have gone either way. I was fine with Chairez getting the win. Nothing special there. Emmanuel Rodriguez defeated Kevin Borjas via TKO punches, 421 of the second round, excuse me. Borjas actually did okay in the first, landed a really nice punch that hurt Rodriguez, but Rodriguez recovered. Hit a really nice combination to finish things off. Rocked Borjas with the left hand, got him against the fence, and then hit him with this really like looping overhand right that just kind of clipped him right about there. It was higher, a little just. Dude, you hit like the back of the head near the top and just kind of rattle that thing. That's all she wrote. Like his leg just went away. It wasn't even like that. I don't want to say that hard of a punch, but like if you've seen people hit really hard in the face, it didn't look like that, but you rattle the brain. That's really the goal, and that's what he did. So solid win. And kicking off the main card, Santiago Luna defeated Angel Pacheco via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the boards. Some decent toughness and a good jab from Pacheco, but he was a little bit outgunned overall by Luna. Nothing super caught my eye out of that one. As for the prelims, Hayan Gondara defeated Jose Daniel Medina via TKO punches, 41 seconds of the first round. Dude, Medina should not have been signed to the UFC. He was signed off a loss in the Contender Series, but it was exciting. And he's gone 0-4 in the UFC. The dude's basically a heavy bag. Getting him in there was just a shortcut to brain damage. Absolutely a mistake. I remember when the UFC had standards. There was a time when if you lost 3 in a row in the UFC, if you weren't like one of the very like either a super promotional darling or like you lost 2 title fights and then lost a number 1 contenders fight. If you weren't like that, you're out the door. Now we got guys on these giant losing streaks, but the UFC's in a position where I guess they don't mind having jobbers on the roster, and I hate to use that term in MMA, but dude, that's kind of what somebody mentioned after the fact. We're going to talk about Chris Moutinho in a sec. After the Moutinho fight, they're like, boy, is Moutinho the worst UFC fighter ever? Like, dude, Medina's fighting soon. I might have responded after the Medina fight, like, dude, Medina fought 2 fights later. And CM Punk's a thing. Like, dude, Mike Jackson, terrible. There's a lot of bad fighters that have been in the UFC. Let's not pretend otherwise, but there's not a lot you see hit these real bad streaks and stick around. So, yeah, I don't have too much else to say there. Eileen Perez defeated Macy Chasson via unanimous decision, 29-28. First round to Chasson, second and third to Perez. Nothing super special there. Largely a story of like who was on top. At distance and when she was on top, Chasson was okay. She had a couple of leg attacks that at least created motion. I don't think any of them got too close to being finished. But ultimately, Perez just kind of smothered her. After the fight, Perez said she wants to fight Tracy Cortez, who fights in a different weight class and is ranked lower. Stupid call out. Then she kind of got on like, boy, I'd like to fight Amanda Nunes because I took her coaches and now I want to take her belt. Like, one, you're assuming Amanda beats Kayla. Big assumption. 2, yeah, sure. Like, Perez is on a good winning streak, but this division is just so bad. Like, she's going to get to a title shot due to lack of options, not because she's super great. She's okay. But the skills, like the talent development and talent acquisition at women's bantamweight has just not been a thing. So, don't know what to tell you. Also, bantamweight again, Christian Quinones defeated Chris Moutinho via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the boards. Chris Moutinho is not very good. Javier Reyes defeated Douglas Silva de Andrade via TKO punches, 4:59 of the first. They're trying to make that sound a little more dramatic. Herb Dean stepped in before 4:59, but that's what the official ruling says. It was more like 4:57. Yeah, Reyes got tagged hard early by good old D Silva, but recovered, got a good win. Yeah, solid enough. Dude, the tail of the tape said these two were the same height. I call bullshit on that one. Um, Javier Reyes was a lot bigger than uh, Douglas Silva de Andrade. So Reyes, decent sort of prospect, especially out of like Colombia, which could use more. Like if you're an okay prospect out of a location that is like sort of starting to get interested in MMA, that can carry a lot of the interest in you. And Colombia doesn't have a ton of fighters. They have some, but apparently Reyes's win was a pretty big deal for like Colombia. So we'll see. He looked okay here. Like the ability to recover after getting hit is a nice thing to show off. Don't show it off too often, but it's good to know he has it. Catch weight of 130 pounds. Regina Tarin defeated Ernesta Carrascate via unanimous decision, 230-27 to 29-28. This was your fight of the night. Should tell you what kind of night we had. It was a moderately engaging pseudo brawl. Tarin's a big girl for that weight class. Like, I don't mean like that sounds weird, but like she's big for the weight class. She's about the same height as Carrascate, who's a fairly tall and lanky woman. And Tarin was a visibly thicker. And don't make that weird. Just more muscular. And she might be a thing. Like she's got a fairly decent Muay Thai career behind her, and curious to see what she does. I mean, Carrascate is not exactly a world beater, but a short notice win in a fight that was moderately enough entertaining. That'll connect a little. That'll generate a little bit of interest, if nothing else. So. And then we had what do we have? Francis Marshall defeated Eric Silva via rear naked choke, 227 to the first. Eric Silva not very good. Francis Marshall good enough. And kicking everything off, we had Damian Pinas defeated Wesley Schultz via TKO punches, 230 to the first. Showcase for Pinas. Walked Schultz down, hurt him repeatedly. Nice fundamentals. Nothing super flashy, but fundamentals done well will carry you a surprisingly long way in this sport. And yeah, that was it. That was the card. Bonuses, I mentioned already, fight of the night was Tarin and Carrascate. Okay. Performances went to Lonnie Kavanagh and Emmanuel Rodriguez. They screwed King Green out of a performance bonus. He absolutely should have got one. He more than Rodriguez by a non-trivial margin. Like they did that for the fans. Like that should meritocratically, that was King Green's bonus walking away. He should have got one of those. Fine with Kavanagh getting one. He looked, given what he did, like I was fine with that. But dude, King Green absolutely deserved a bonus. And what did they hand out in finish bonuses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, missed that one. Yeah, 5. Not the most exciting night. It was an acceptable night of fights, but again, nothing super special. So if you want to read my full report, it's in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. Stop by, give it a read if you're so inclined. I always appreciate that. You're over there now. She did not have a lot to say about that. I feel kind of bad about that one. I don't know what else I would have said, but I wish I'd had more to say. All right, let's move on to UFC 326. So this will be coming our way on Saturday. Let's clear this stuff out. Gotta fix my spreadsheet. Because this is where I keep track of my stuff. Okay. So UFC 326. Not you. There we go. I'm gonna, you know what? This overall card is okay. The main event is can't miss. I mean, neither guy's been in a boring fight in like a decade at least. What else do we have? This is not the deepest card. Just be honest about that. But there's some stuff to be found here. So let me bring up my other couple of things because I've got to keep track of this. Okay. So main event. There we go. Now I'm all set. For the symbolic BMF title, Max Holloway defending that particular strap against Charles Oliveira. I gotta tell you guys, when these two first fought, and this was, geez, how many years ago now? Let's have a quick look. Oh, way back machine. Oh, good grief. August of 15, 10 and a half years ago. I was excited for this fight the first time it was announced. I really was. Max Holloway was really hitting his stride. He was on a good winning streak at that point. He had just choked out Cub Swanson. He hadn't lost since fighting McGregor. This was on his run up to the belt. And Oliveira was an exciting guy. Even if he wasn't going to win a fight, he didn't really have bad fights. Oliveira kind of bullied some people at 145. He's still, for whatever reason, man, Charles Oliveira in the year of our Lord 2026, still saying I think he can make 145. No, you can't. Stop it. But in the run up to that fight, Oliveira, he'd had some issues. Scrolling down. But he was on a 4-fight winning streak. He choked at Andy Ogle, Hatsu Hioki, beat Jeremy Stevens. Just wait for that. He beat Nick Lentz. So he was on a good winning streak. Like, this was kind of a who's going to make the move to the belt. And I was psyched for this fight. You can go back into the old archives about this thing. I was pumped. And then it ends in short order due to a neck injury to Charles Oliveira, and I was so let down. I picked Holloway that first time. I'm picking him again. Spoiler for when I get to that point. Max Holloway is really filled out at lightweight now. He's hard to get down. He's hard to hurt. He's got a motor. He's a diverse striker. He's a thinking fighter. Charles Oliveira is a good fighter. He's very game. His takedowns at lightweight definitely have improved. But he tends to be, he needs to be going forward, first of all. And he likes to, do some flying knees into the clinch. He's a little predictable with some of that stuff, but he's offense everywhere. I think that's just walking predictably into Max is tough. And Oliveira's defense is largely comprised of shelling while moving forward. Not saying he doesn't move his head at all, but largely it's trying to block or get you covering up as he crashes distance with knees and elbows. And I just don't think that's a winning formula against Max Holloway. This will be a good fight. I can't imagine. I shouldn't jinx this. I'm going to, but I shouldn't. I can't really imagine this fight being bad. Even their first fight, it's not long, but it's not bad. But I need a pretty big reason to pick against Max Holloway, and respectfully to Charles Oliveira at this point, he does not offer that. Yeah, the odds are about minus 200 with Holloway all the way around. So as I told you already, I was going with Holloway. But that'll be a good fight. I'm very much looking forward to that one. Co-main event, we take a bit of a step down, but still moderately intriguing. Let's give the co-main event its due, or semi-main event if you prefer. That bit of pedantry is starting to make its way around the MMA sphere. Went around the professional wrestling world a few years back, and some people picked up on it. And you know what? If you want to, fine. Caio Borralho and Reinier de Ritter. I don't know what to think about this one. I think it'll be a perfectly acceptable fight. If we're just talking like, is it going to be entertaining? It'll probably be fine. Borralho is a fairly solid fighter. But De Ridder is just weird. And Bahalio has struggled a little bit with the weird guys. Like, if you're more fundamentally sound than he is and you can deal with his weirdness, he struggles a bit. And if you're weirder than he is, he struggles a little bit. He likes to be in the sweet middle spot where he's a little bit more technical than you, but can go with the weirdness, or he's just a little bit weirder than you and can use that to open up his technical game where you're not as technical as he is. De Ridder's defense is a problem. It's not great. And I think he learned, I mean, he said publicly that, fighting as often as he did before isn't really sustainable, and that's true at this level. He's taken enough time off after that for this to be, properly prepared. Bahalio has had a few issues that De Ridder could exploit, but okay, the odds are with Bahalio. Am I really going to pick De Ridder? He did not look great against Brendan Allen. There were some things going on there that I don't think are necessarily going to be in play here. Part of the problem, part of the reason I think Bahalio is as big a favorite as he is you're doing MMA math. Like, Bahalio's better than Brendan Allen in general. Haven't they fought? I feel like they've fought. Let me have a look. They might not have. Murray, Omar Gadzhiev, Petrosian, Muradov, Alexejevich, Magomedov, Craig. They have not. Okay. So the thought process there is he probably would be. I would pick Bahalio to beat Brendan Allen. Not by the biggest of margins, but I would favor him. And Reinier de Ridder did just lose to Brendan Allen. So you kind of got to weigh that out. And when all you're doing is setting odds, I get where that's coming from. I really do. But okay. For the sake of a pick here, I'm going to go with de Ridder, actually, but I'm going to asterisk this one. I need to see them next to each other. And then there's a thing I got to look up in tape on both of these guys. But I will give RDR just a little bit of an edge for the sake of picking right now as I think about it. But, like, asterisk. So I know that's marking my spreadsheet up so I am reminded when I have other stuff to do. The asterisk means due to more in-depth tape study. Bantamweight after that, Rob Font and Raul Rosas Jr. Boy, do I not have a dog in this fight. Odds are with Rosas. What's Font been up to? I mean, I respect the heck out of Font, but he's 38. I mean, again, he has a very, very respectable career. That loss to David Martinez is nothing trivial. He had a rough stretch. I mean, in fairness, his losses were like Jose Aldo, Marlon Vera, Corey Sandhagen, and Davison Figueiredo. So he's not losing to scrubs, but who's his best win? I mean, the Yanez win was big, but Yanez has kind of turned into a little bit of a bust. Matsumoto, Phillips, Garbrandt might be the biggest name he's beaten. Marlon Moraes, Ricky Simone, Sergio Pettis, Tomas Almeida. Yeah, he does not have like a big name win. He's fought some big names, and respect to him for it, but he's never beaten them. Again, the closest he's got is Garbrandt as a former champion, but we kind of know the story on Garbrandt at this point. Rosa still only has like the one real setback. He looked okay against Ricci Long. I don't think he looked great against Vince Morales. I mean, he won the fight, but I don't think he looked great. This is kind of your big acid test for Font. I think like the best version of Rob Font would win this fight. I don't know that he's the best version of himself anymore, is kind of the big question there. So I will respect the odds. I don't like it. let me asterisk this one too. This is less about tape study and more about. I hate to say that one's a gut feeling, but that one kind of is going to wind up being a gut feeling come fight night. Lightweights, Michael Johnson and Drew Dober. Michael Johnson, what a weird career that guy's had. I mean, he knocked out Dustin Poirier, but, you know, got stopped by Carlos Diego Ferreira, lost to Jamie Malarkey. Dude lost to Clay Guida in 2021. Like, he's all over the place. He's on a bit of a career resurgence. 3 in a row, wins over Darius Flowers, Otman Azaitar, and Dennis Zellhuber. I'm gonna deflate the balloon a little bit. Flowers, I think is kind of a washout. Azaitar was coming off a giant layoff and is not that good. And Zellhuber is turned into kind of a bust. So he's won the fights, and that's really the important thing, but there does need to be some understanding there. Dober, another dude, getting up there a little bit, 37, a lot of fights. Dober's had 44 professional fights. Just broke a 3-fight losing streak. His losses in that were to Moicano, Gian Silva, and Manuel Torres. He got, I don't want to say he got lucky against Kyle Prepolek. That would be a bridge too far, but some things broke in his favor. And that's just kind of how that goes. You got 2 old war horses. Both guys like to strike. Both guys have iffy defense. Dober's big thing is that he used to have a rock solid chin. It's not quite as rock solid now. It's not super cracked, but it's not quite what it used to be. That's a problem. Johnson still has fast hands, still has decent power. They both Johnson is southpaw. Does Dober fight southpaw? I don't think he does, but he might. Not listed there. I bet you'll have it. Or he just doesn't. Affiliations. Doesn't say there either. That is annoying. I don't think I think he's Orthodox. Well, he might do some switching. I don't know. So that actually does like factor into how I want to pick this because Johnson's got some weapons, but he has to really figure stuff out against close stance fighters because he struggles there a little bit. This will probably be a fun fight for what it's worth. Odds are close. They're a little bit with Johnson. Dober's defense has been an issue for a little bit now, and I can understand that. I just don't know how much. I mentioned Dober's 38, Johnson's, 39. Like, neither of these guys are spring chickens. And power might be the last thing to go, but the wheels do start falling off at some point, especially when you get towards 40. Part of me wants to pick Dober. He gets hit a lot, though, and that's a bad habit to have against Michael Johnson. You kind of do need sharp defense to supplement your offense. Yeah, I'm going to go with Johnson. You know what? That's another one. Am I really going to do this 3 times in a row? Okay, but I have to stop asterisking things now. I'm going to give that one an asterisk. I do need to double check 2 things on Dober, but other than that, I'm going to go with Johnson. And kicking off the main card, Gregory Rodriguez and Bruno Ferreira. This is a rematch. Ferreira stopped Rodriguez's momentum. And I know he's Brazilian, but for some reason he does prefer Rodriguez instead of Rodriguez. He was he stopped a bit of momentum that Rodriguez had. Rodriguez came into the UFC, won 2 fights, lost to Petrosian via split decision that he should have won. Won 2 more fights, then lost to Ferreira, then won 3 fights, then lost to Cannonier, then won 2 more fights. I picked Rodriguez the first time. I think the logic behind picking him largely holds up. And yeah, I know Ferreira got him last time, but I think Rodriguez was winning that fight before he got caught. So I'm gonna go with Rodriguez again. And if I have to learn that same lesson the hard way, with an S, not a Z, because Brazil, then I'll just learn that lesson the hard way, I suppose. Up there, okay. That's your main card. A few of these upcoming fights, I don't think we have a finalized bout order for, so we're just going to see how this goes. At bantamweight, Cody Garbrandt and Xiao Long. This is do or die for Garbrandt. I've said this before. Garbrandt turned in one of the most impressive 6-round stretches I've ever seen. The 5 rounds with Dominic Cruz in the first round of that first fight with TJ Dillashaw is a sublime stretch of, 30 minutes of fighting. Genuinely great. And then it all just kind of fell apart. He really needs to get this one. And if he's not able to beat Xiao Long, that's a real problem. Now, Long is 27-10, one of those long career in China. Only 27, 1-2 in the UFC. He lost to Chong Ho Lee, beat Kwang Lee, and lost to Jiu-Jitsu Su Yong Yu. You know what? I'll just say it right now. This is the last time I'm going to pick Cody Garbrandt if he loses. The odds are with Long. That should tell you where we are. I'm still going to pick Garbrandt. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But, okay, hang on. What was the last time Garbrandt lost? Because I know he's on a losing streak. I mean, he's only 34, but man. Okay, so Garbrandt, 2-fight losing streak to Figueiredo and Hani Barcelos. He's been out of action since June of 25 after the loss to Barcelos. I have not yet said of him. Have I said of him this is the last time I'm picking him? I feel like there's a chance I've said that about him before. And then he kind of like rescued it. When did that change my mind? I might have after the Jones fight when he came back to bantamweight because I picked him against Kelleher, I think. I did not pick him against Figueiredo, if memory serves. I don't think I picked him against Barcelos. Oh. I'm going to regret this, but I'm going to pick him. And for the record, this is it. If he loses to Xiao Long, I can't pick him again to win a fight. I can't do it at that point. But if Long's struggling with the guys he struggled with, I think this is this is your last shot if you're Garbrandt. Like if you lose this, you're done. You just have to be done. Featherweights next, Ricky Tercios and Alberto Montes. Where are you from, sir? That is Bolivia? Oh, Venezuela. Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, Venezuela. Okay. What about you, Mr. Montez? 10-1. This is his UFC debut. He's been out of action for a minute. His last fight was an Anaconda choke win in October of 24 on a Contender Series card. He's had 2 fights fall out since then. And Ricky Tercios is the world's weirdest fighter. And I don't mean weird in a fun way. I mean, that dude might show up and go hell for leather. Or he might show up and just march forward key-eyeing at you for 15 minutes. That dude is all over the place. He's a nut. I say that with love because this is a sport of nuts. But I have no grasp on Ricky Tercios. His record is 12-5. It's so up and down. I mean, he had a really good. Let me give Tercios his flowers here because he deserves some of them. His win over Brady Heastand was solid, but then that fight with Amin Zahabi was trash. That was a terrible fight. That Kevin Natividad fight was not great. His last fight, he lost to Bernardo Sopai. Again, I don't know what to make of Tercios, man. And if I don't know what to make of him, I have a real hard time picking him. So it's not much more complicated than that. I'll go with Montez. At flyweight, Cody Durden and excuse me, I know how to do the guy's last name okay. I can never get this first name right. Niam Jargal. Yeah, Niam Jargal Tumendenberel. Tumendenberel? Yeah, Tumendenberel. I give you the last name okay. Tumendenberel, I'm okay with. That first one throws me off. Durden, good wrestler, mediocre gas tank at flyweight. He just really slows down and gasses out into the second round. 3-fight losing streak for Durden. Just 1-5 in his last 6. He's lost to Tagir Ulanbekov, Bruno Silva. He beat Matt Schnell. It was a good win. It was up at flyweight, or excuse me, up at bantamweight. Lost to Joshua Van. Van became champion. Lost to Jose Ochoa, and most recently got choked out by Alan Nascimento. Like, I'm not here to like dump on Durden, but he's another guy who might be on his last legs in the promotion. Tumendenberel is 9-1. He's what, 1-1 in the UFC? Yeah, he lost to Carlos Hernandez in his debut. Beat he won his way back to the UFC. That was his UFC debut. He lost. Then he had a couple of fights fall out, I think on the regional, one on the regional scene, then he got let go. Then he had a fight fall out with Ray Saruya on the road to UFC. Then he won a road to UFC event. Choking out Terran Setarun with an anaconda choke, and Durden's a little susceptible to the front headlock series. Yeah, I think Durden might just be a little past it at this point. So I have to spell this gentleman's last name. D-E-N? An N or an M. Tumendenberel. Tumendenberel. Okay. And yeah, that front headlock series, that is just a weakness for Durden, and that's a bad weakness to have at flyweight. So I think, okay, what else do we got? Do we have anything else? Or are we going to move in? Okay, I think we move into early prelims now. Again, there's a few fights here that have had like bout changes, so we don't know the full bout order. So my apologies on that. Okay, we have Sumu Darji and Jesus Aguilar at flyweight. Aguilar 12-3. He's been out for a little bit, hasn't he? 4-2 in the UFC. His last fight was September of last year. Okay, not that long. When he beat Luis Gurule, he lost to Rafael Estevan before that. Had a 3-fight winning streak going. I mean, Aguilar's not too bad. Aguilar's a solid fighter. Sumu Darji is 18-7. He's a little up and down. 5-4 in the UFC. 2-fight winning streak. Split decision over Mitch Raposo. Straight decision over Kevin Borjas. 3-fight losing streak before that. Matt Schnell, Tim Elliott, and Charles Johnson. So the dude's just might finally be finding his footing. That's a well-matched fight. What are the odds on that one? They're with Sumu Darji. If you get like plus 200 on Aguilar. If you're looking for value, that's value to be found for the record. But as far as picks goes, I will go with Sumu Darji. Yeah, I think Aguilar. Again, he's good, but he's very methodical. And I don't know that methodical is the way to go about fighting Sumu Darji. Light heavyweight, Adolfo Bellato and Luke Fernandez. This fight's gonna suck. Where's that fight further down? I don't know. Again, these are the ones I'm not sure on the order on, guys. Bellato is not very good. Fernandez is making his UFC debut. He's undefeated, so there's that. But he's only 6-0. That's an okay grappling pedigree. I think the issue is I just don't pick Bellato to win fights at this point. 12-3-1, as well as 1 no contest. Yeah, 1-1-1 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He has the rainbow. Like full on rainbow. 1 draw, no contest, loss. I just don't think I pick him to win fights, and I think they might be trying to prop Fernandez up, excuse me. Yeah, the odds kind of agree with that. It's easy. That's just tea leaf. That's reading tea leaves more than me having a deep familiarity with either fighter's game. Also at light heavyweight, because the UFC hates us. Rafael Tobias against DR Nergojai. Brazilian Rafael. Nergojai is not good. Dude got Kimura trapped. He had full go. One of the most remedial bits of grappling I've seen in the UFC in a long time came from this guy. He got taken down or got knocked down. I can't remember exactly, but he was on bottom with full guard. And the dude on top, Ezekiel, choked him. Now, I am not going to sit here and say that that's never happened to me. That's a thing you do when there's a giant skill gap. And if the skill gap is so big that you're getting Ezekiel choked when you have full guard, you've got problems. Like big problems that you really need to iron out. He is 0-2 in the UFC. Tobias his nickname is Bipolar. That's a choice. 6-fight winning streak. He's coming off a Contender Series win. He's like a decently well-rounded guy. Just looking at his outcomes. I just don't think I picked Nergojai at this point to win anything. Dude, you got Ezekiel choked when you had full guard. Like, what the heck else is there to say? Just checking the odds, got a morbid curiosity. Yeah, the odds agree with me. Okay, and I think lastly here we have at featherweight Gaston Bolaños and Jung Lee. Seen both of these guys fight. Bolaños 8-5. Had a tough go in the UFC, only 2-2 in the promotion. He beat Aaron Phillips, lost to Marcus McGee, beat Cortavius Romeus, and lost to Kwong Lee. That about sums it up. I mean, the Marcus McGee loss, I'm not going to hold against him. Marcus McGee's good. Kwong Lee, not as good as Marcus McGee. And let's have a quick look at Lee here then. Stop doing that. 11-3. Which Korean are you, sir? Korean Tiger. I recognize you a little bit now. 11-3. 2-2 in the UFC as well. He beat Yi Zhan and beat Blake Builder, then lost to Hader Amil. That was a tough loss. Then lost to Daniel Santos. I don't know about Bolaños. I don't know super much about enough to go with Lee, I think. But man, I don't know. Again, that's where it is on the card for a reason. So that's all I can say there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, what fights did we lose from this? Let me just have a quick look. Oh, wait, Lee's taking that on short notice too. Does that change my opinion? Because that was supposed to be Gaston Bolaños and Jusong Yu, good old Jiu-Jitsu. Is Jusong Yu Jiu-Jitsu or is that? No, that's Zombie Jr. is Jusung Yu. Right, right. I definitely would have picked you. Other you, spelled the other way, is Jiu-Jitsu. I would have picked Zombie Jr. over Bolaños. Pretty not having to think about that one too much. Lee's a little bit more iffy. I'm still gonna go with Lee, but that does give me some pause. We lost Dushko Todorovic and Dante Johnson. Avoided more like than lost. Paulo Costa and Bruno Ferreira. Costa pulled out of that one, and Rodriguez stepped in. We also lost Moicano and Ortega. So we did lose some fights there, but you know what? Main event is can't complain about the main event at all. Co-main event is solid. Gets a little dicier after that, but I find that to be a perfectly respectable numbered event, especially these days. Now, hopefully, nothing falls out during fight week is really what we gotta kind of gamble on here. So that's where that is. So I will have coverage Saturday in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. So stop by, say hello if you're so inclined. Always appreciate any of that you're able to throw my way. So, all right, let's move on then. So let's start with UFC 327. I think that's what we're going to start with here. So we got the full card announcement for UFC 327. Let's do that first. Let's talk about that card. And there's a pretty big implication that comes out of it, but let's talk about it on its own terms first. The only fight we knew going into the before this last announcement from Dana White, which was Friday, we knew that Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira were going to fight on this card for the flyweight belt. We knew that. That's a good fight. They weren't going to main event with it, but that's a good fight. We now know the full card. I am not going to complain too much about this card, guys. Your main event for the light heavyweight title, Yuri Prochazka and Carlos Ulberg. Now, if you thought to yourself, wait a minute, isn't Alex Pereira, good old Poetan, the light heavyweight champion? Apparently not. Want to talk about that in a second, but I want to give that, like, after we talk about the rest of this card, I want to give the card its own due first. But Pereira is not the light heavyweight champion anymore. So, but 2 title fights. The light heavyweight one, Ulberg's the right guy to be fighting for the belt. And if Poetan's not going to be there, I'm fine with Yuri getting another crack at that one. That'll probably be fine. Yuri's either going to walk him down kind of like Kennedy did, or Yuri's going to walk into too many check hooks. That's sort of my impromptu read on that as we stand right now. But I will be rooting for Yuri for whatever that's worth. Co-main event again, Van and Taira is going to be great. That's going to be bonkers, so thumbs up there. Also on this card, Beneil Dariush and Manuel Torres. That is not doing Beneil Dariush any favors. His chin's a little bit gone, and Manuel Torres just knocks people stupid. Mateusz Gamrot and Esteban Ribovics. That's an interesting choice. I would have preferred Ribovics and Moicano. Or maybe Gamrot and Moicano too. Like, that's a fine fight. Might lean Gamrot at the moment. I haven't seen Ribovics deal with a real hard-charging wrestler like that yet. At heavyweight, Curtis Blades and Josh Hokett. They are fast-tracking Josh Hokett, are they not? That said, it's heavyweight. It sucks. Who cares? Dude, if Curtis Blades is losing to Josh Hokett, one, Hokett's going to be a lot better than we thought, but 2, that's a pretty big fall from grace for Blades. Welterweight, Kevin Hall and Randy Brown. They've tried this one a few times. Hopefully it holds together. That should be fun. Bellator vets, Patricio Pitbull and Aaron Pico are going to fight. Bellator never got around to making that one. The UFC did. That's kind of do or die for Pico. Had some hype coming into the UFC. Did okay against Lerone Murphy before walking into that spinning back elbow and getting iced. Dominic Reyes and Johnny Walker will be funny, if nothing else. Azamat Murzakanov and Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa coming back up to light heavyweight here. Murzakanov's good, and Paulo Costa is unreliable. Tatiana Suarez and Lupe Godinez. I don't care. Cub Swanson and Nate Landwehr. That'll be some. I say this with love. That'll be some meathead violence, right? That'll be some meathead. Kelvin Gastelum and Vicente Luque. Gastelum's a little past it, and I would get worried about Luque at this point. Dude had a brain bleed not that long ago. Like, I don't know that he should still be doing this. And Francisco Prado and Christopher Alvidrez. That was supposed to be somebody else, right? I feel like originally that was somebody else, but I'm okay watching Prado fight. So on the whole, 327, that's a thumbs up. Like, there's some pretty serious violence potential on that card. Look, I mentioned this, I think it was last week. Somebody asked me about the state of the UFC, but like the Paramount deal had helped dilute the product, and I think a little bit. But the reality is the UFC also overloaded the last quarter of 2025. Like September, October, November, December, certainly like October, November, December. They put a lot of stuff on the table for those 3.5, 4 months, give or take. And that just meant that the first quarter of 2026 wound up being depleted because of it. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't help that, Khamzat is Khamzat. And Ilya Taporia had to, handle personal stuff. Not ideal. But, going the first quarter of 2026 without a real title fight. We had an interim fight between Gagey and Pimblett. I shouldn't say without a real one, because we did have Volk and Lopez. Lopez shouldn't have been in there, but I'm not the matchmaker. And then we have the BMF one with Oliveira and Holloway, but we haven't, apart from Volk, we haven't had a real title defense first quarter of 2026. Now, part of that, I mentioned this before, like if you're a champion and you fought end of August or any of October, November, December, you're not fighting in the first quarter of 2026. That's just kind of unreasonable. But we're not getting like another real title fight apart from Volk until this at 327, which is in the second quarter. Still in the first third of 2026. And look, I saw some people mention that as a point of criticism, and I understand how we got here. Some of it was just unavoidable with how the UFC booked out the end of 2025. Some of it was bad luck, and some of it was a couple of fighters being weird. Again, gonna look at Chimaev there, like I fight once a year. Okay. But 327 on its own, there's going to be some violence, and I'm looking forward to that card. So I'm not going to be overly pessimistic about it. But there's a bit of an elephant in the room. There's two elephants we're going to wind up talking about. One is that Alex Pereira is no longer the light heavyweight champion. He has vacated that belt, which he tried to uncurse and eventually decided to just leave it, and it's still kind of a messed up belt. I'll say this: he did more about as much to uncurse it as you could. So there's that. But if he's not champion, that's only for one reason. It's because he's going to fight for the heavyweight belt. Like, there's no other reason for him to drop that title outside of losing it. Like, to just say, nope, here, take it back. It's only if he's moving up. And if he's moving up, it's only to fight for the belt or a belt. So the question now is, who does Alex Pereira fight at heavyweight for the belt? It's not going to be Tom Aspinall. He's still recovering from double eye surgery. So there's two questions at play here. One is what the UFC does with the heavyweight title. Given the uncertainty around Aspinall, an interim belt is not out of the question. And I mean that in all sincerity, it would be fairly deserved. The fact that the UFC overuses interim belts and has for a few years now dilutes their relevance and importance when they come up in circumstances where they are called for. There is one potentially called for here. Or if you're deeply unsure about Tom Aspinall's timetable, stripping him of the title, I hate to say it's understandable, but it is. I don't like it, but if you don't know if that guy's going to fight again because his eyes are screwed up, if you're the promotion, I mean, your hands are kind of tied there, right? Like you got to do what you got to do. So that's one major question. The other one is who is Pereira going to fight? Because from where I sit, there are two options. It's either Cyril Gane getting his third title shot off the back of potentially eye-poking Tom Aspinall into an early retirement. If my eye starts twitching, it's because, boy, doesn't sit right with me. Or former light heavyweight and heavyweight champion John Jones out of a temporary retirement. If he's going to fight John, it's probably for the full belt. John will just retire again with it, though, so I don't know what we're doing here. That's if John wins, and frankly, I don't hate his chances against Pereira. I don't even hate Gane's chances against Pereira. I would probably pick Pereira to beat Gane, but I'm not going to pretend that that's some kind of course, Pereira wins. No, you can make a case for Gane winning that fight on paper. He's bigger than Pereira. He's quick. He's lighter on his feet than Pereira. He's got a good jab. Like, there's a lot good. Gane gets kind of, at the moment at least, kind of forgotten because he fought a little bit stupidly against Francis Ngannou down the stretch when he could have won that fight. He got run over by John and just turned in a piss poor effort in that fight, and then fouled Aspinall. But he was winning that first round before the foul. It's more frustrating that way, actually. Cyril Gane is a pretty good heavyweight. Partially the division sucks, but he's pretty good. He could beat Pereira. Now, Pereira could beat him too. Like, I'm certainly not pretending otherwise. I might favor Pereira, but that's not an easy I favor Pereira. And I would favor John at this point over Pereira. I know he's got hip issues, and I know outside the cage, John Jones is like a giant mess. But in the cage, John Jones is one of the very best, if not the best fighter I've ever seen. And I think he has studied enough of Pereira's game to have a real good idea about how he wants to tackle that particular problem. And there's a lot about John's game that I think is very, very good. There's a few things that are not great. But let me tell you, man, John has the best fight IQ of an MMA fighter I've ever seen. I don't know anyone who makes better decisions in the cage, especially moment to moment. Like, you get some real high level, real adjusty guys. Demetrius Johnson was good at adjusting. Max will adjust very well. Volk will adjust. Like, not saying they don't, but John's fight IQ is the best for MMA that I've ever seen. And that's not a thing I say lightly. And if he thinks he's got a way to attack Pereira, I would take that very seriously. I think there's a reason he didn't want to fight Aspinall. And I think it's because he didn't have a great idea about how to handle that. For any number of reasons. Like, there just wasn't a lot of tape on Aspinall either. There's a lot of tape on Pereira. And I think John knows what he wants to do there. And that has been a winning formulation for John Jones for a really long time. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So we're supposed to get the UFC White House announcements this week. Pereira is going to be on that card fighting for the heavyweight belt. Against who remains to be seen. But, I mean, there's no other reason for Prochazka and Olberg to be fighting for the vacant belt. So that's where we are. But, man, Poatan might become a 3-division champion. You know, if you'd asked me which, who's going to, where does the potential exist for 3-division glory? My gut might have been 45, 55, and 70. You get a real big featherweight who doesn't last long in that division, but gets that belt, wins at lightweight, and then wins at welterweight. Now, that's a hard ask. It's a real hard ask. But that might have been my go-to. I know other people were like, flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight. There's some big featherweights, and if you can make flyweight, fighting at featherweight is a real dicey proposition, just size-wise. And frankly, bantamweight to lightweight, there's a giant size disparity. Like, take the biggest bantamweight there is right now in the UFC. I don't know who exactly that would be, but take the biggest guy that can make 135. Plop him at 155, he's small. So, but I would not have guessed middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. There's some big middleweights, but even a big middleweight at heavyweight is not big. Pereira's not going to be a big heavyweight. Doesn't mean he won't win. He'll probably be, 230s, maybe 240s. But he's not going to be a big heavyweight. I've seen big heavyweights. He won't be that. But he can be the more skillful guy. And I think he also benefited, frankly, he benefited from getting from the backstory with Izzy to get kind of boosted up there at middleweight. Light heavyweight just sucks. And frankly, at this point, heavyweight just sucks. Like, imagine for just a second that Pereira had to win one fight before fighting for the belt at heavyweight. Just one. There are guys in that weight class who can beat him. I'm not saying that I would necessarily pick any of them to necessarily beat him. But if you were to tell me he's got to beat Curtis Blades, or he's got to beat, I don't know, he's not a top heavyweight. Maybe not Gone, but he's got to beat, Volkov. Or Pavlovich might be a little bit damaged at this point. But, like, if you gave him, the top 5 heavyweights, that's for the sake of argument, because that division is just so bad. Let's have a look at the rankings. What is... that's not what I'm interested in. Rankings, there you are. Okay, let's have a quick look at heavyweight. That needs to be updated. Okay. So if we go from bottom to top, so Vitor Petrino, I would favor him. Walter Walker, I would favor Pereira. Mick Parkin, I'd favor Pereira. Shamil Gaziv, I'd favor Pereira. Taliesin Teixeira, I'd favor Pereira. Ante Delia, I'd favor Pereira. Tabora, I'd favor Pereira, but we're getting dicey. Derek Lewis, at this point, I'd favor Pereira because Lewis is kind of washed. Rizvan Kuniev could just wall install him, potentially. Sergey Spivak. Again, Spivak, that's Sergey Spivak. Spivak might be able to get him on the ground. Waldo Cortez Acosta at 5. Like, okay, Costa doesn't deal well with leg kicks. So matchup wise, I would favor Pereira. But if you told me Cortez Acosta just did win that fight, I wouldn't be shocked. Blades, I think, would out wrestle him, or at least try to. Sergey Pavlovich, again, a little damaged, but like I might pick Volkov over Pereira. So if Pereira had to win a fight before fighting for the belt, that becomes a dicey proposition. Dicier. The division just sucks. So they're going to give him a free pass because Poatan is one of the few like draws. And frankly, Poatan was an incredibly valuable player for them in like 2024. I think it got mentioned. Like, if you take Poatan out of the UFC's 2024, 2024 is a garbage year for them. His activity and his willingness to do what he did, saved is a bit strong. But because there were some other good stuff in 2024, but dude, it was a bad year overall. And I think if you wound up replacing his stuff with other stuff, it's bad. Like literally the only thing we'd wind up talking about is Topuria knocking out because 2024 he knocked out Volk and Holloway, which is great. Like, dude, doesn't get much better than that. But that would have been it. There was nothing else if you take Poatan out of that equation. Then 2025, not as much, but they're going to give him a free pass into the title picture, and dude, he might win it. We might get history out of him. First ever UFC 3 division champion. If he pulls that off, that will be maybe the crowning moment in one of the most impressive overall combat sports careers. If you look at what he did in Glory, he was not the greatest, guy to come out of Glory, but man, he did. He was, a champion there, not for nothing. If he then like gets 3 belts in the UFC, one of them being regained. He won the middleweight belt, lost the middleweight belt, won the light heavyweight belt, lost the light heavyweight belt, won it back. If you're a middleweight champion, a 2-time light heavyweight champion, and then you add heavyweight on top of that, that is straight up legendary stuff. So, and the UFC is just kind of desperate for something to inject a little bit of life. I mean, again, I gone over it before for reasons, some understandable. They've just had a lackluster start to the year. And you need a shot in the arm. And Poatan at heavyweight for the belt and history and all kinds of stuff, that constitutes it. That qualifies. 1,000,000% that qualifies. So, yeah, that's how that goes. Okay. Let's talk briefly. We can go brief on this. Okay. So the UFC also announced the main event for their return to Sydney, Australia. It will be May 2nd. Main event, 0 complaints about this fight, by the way. Jack Della Maddalena and Carlos Prates. Heck yeah. Hook it into my veins. That's going to be good. Former champion, rising contender. If Prates wins this, it should get him a title shot in all probability. That does limit the options for Islam Makhachev at this point down to 2 choices. He's either going to defend against Michael Morales or Ian Machado Gary. I feel like the UFC is going to lean towards Gary, and Morales will have to knock somebody else out, which he probably will. But that's limiting. This is an appropriate use of the components at the top of welterweight. And again, I don't think you can make a bad fight out of those, but that's a good fight. It'll be a good main event. Minor note, this is going to air prime time in Sydney. So the prelims are going to start at like 2 a.m. my time. I think the main card starts at 7 a.m. Eastern, just 5 a.m. for me. So we back up like 2-3 hours from that. And yeah, we get to like 2-3 in the morning. I'm going to go straight from SmackDown basically into that. That's going to suck. Well, I can sleep Saturday away after that. It's going to be rough. But the UFC doesn't care about some of this stuff anymore. And you know what? I'm not going to be too mad at it. The good people of Sydney dealt with a lot of Sunday cards and all that stuff. So not going to be up in arms over it. We got some weird other fight announcements too. Let me keep with this going for a sec. So last week, after the announcement of Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey on Netflix, which is weird, a couple of other weird fights got it. I mean, and when I say weird, I mean that with like respect. MMA, well, combat sports always has a bit of a flair for the weird. We're getting a rematch between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Why? Their first fight was like late. Floyd kind of waited some of Manny out, which is fine. Manage your career. But at this point, like, do they both need money that badly? I mean, clearly. We also got a boxing fight. Alexander Usyk, the heavyweight champion of the world. I don't know if he's still undisputed. I think he still is. Which means he has all the 4 relevant belts. He's going to defend, I think, at least one of those at the Pyramids of Giza, which is a really cool backdrop, against kickboxing great Rico Verhoeven. This is a weird fight. It does more explain Rico not going to the UFC. I mean, they offered him peanuts. And if the other end of that offer is, here's 10 million, I'm making that up, but hypothetically, here's $10 million to fight the best heavyweight boxer of this generation, one of the very best boxers of this generation, period. One of the pound for pound best. In a cool backdrop for a lot of money. While the UFC is like, well, sure, we'll bring you in on 20 and 20 because they are unserious people at this point. Like, I'll watch because I love watching Usyk, but I struggle to see that being competitive. But that's just where we are. The weirdness, man. Combat sports is announcing the weirdness right now. All right. We're coming up on the 90-minute mark, so that's all I've got written down. All right, let me check the old social medias. And if there is nothing new fight related, we will do plugs and get out of here. So let's have a quick look. Don't really care. No, that's just stupid. I'm not seeing too much. Seeing some excitement for a potential fight between Kavanagh and Josh Van, which of course would be fine. But I mean, Kavanagh still got some things to do, and it's not like Van doesn't have his hands full with Tyro. So, I mean, the PFL made some announcements. I'm going to talk while I scroll. But man, the PFL is like not that far away from closing. I feel like they're building a bridge. I saw some people do but the tournament was their only hook. The tournament was never going to do them any favors, but it differentiates them. So what? I'm not saying that you couldn't do like something with kind of a tournament, but that being your big selling point is just no one cares. No one really cares in MMA. So there's that. I don't think I'm seeing anything new fight related. Okay, that's a funny name. All right, sorry, I shouldn't. If I'm not going to share any of that with you guys, then I shouldn't. All right, I think we're about done here. So if there's no last minute questions or comments or anything that you want me to interact with, and I've not seen any. So let's do plugs. Okay. Monday, which is when a lot of you might be listening to this, on Damn You Hollywood, we will be reviewing Scream 7. Because Paramount just won't let that thing die. Oh, I was. I don't think I'll talk about it. I was going to talk a little bit about Paramount potentially, Netflix backing out of buying Warner Brothers, and now Paramount looking like they're going to get it. That's still pending a few other things, but let me save that. I'll save that maybe for next time. We'll talk about it if anyone's interested. So let me know if you are. I'm happy to do so. I do have thoughts. Or tune into Damn You Hollywood when Mark and I will definitely discuss it, because it was big news in the entertainment landscape, and I can maybe talk about how it relates to MMA over there while doing the movie review. So that's going to be me, Mark, and Jason or Alexis. What's the calendar say? Calendar says, oh, give me that. Alexis. Okay. So me, Mark, and Alexis will be reviewing Scream 7 at 9 p.m. Eastern on Damn You Hollywood. This is in the W2M family of stuff. So it streams YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, a lot of places. So stop by over there. That's my movie review podcast. We review the movies, we talk the business and the money of movie making, and we talk about the critics. We review the critics because most of them are really bad at their job. So tune in for any and all of that. We have a good time over there. Last week, Mark and I reviewed Psycho Killer. What a bad movie. Just a bad movie. I feel bad about it. Terrible movie. So, but if you want to go back and listen to that, Mark and I have a good time kind of deconstructing it. And what else this week? I cover SmackDown for 411 Mania on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays. So this week will be the fallout from Elimination Chamber. Also, which Randy Orton won. We're also getting a title fight between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes, which is those two have been feuding for like 8 months. It feels like, and I don't know how to feel about it. We're just gonna get some BS anyway. Like, there's no way they actually just pivot to Cody and Randy in a singles match for Mania. Like, it's gonna be weird ending. Jacob Fatu is gonna get involved, and we're gonna get some shenanigans. Aleister Blacks might show up because he and Randy Orton have a little bit of a thing going on, at least for a couple of weeks to keep Orton busy. It's gonna get messy because that's the era we're living in. So tune in for my coverage of that. And again, the UFC event on Saturday for 326 should be a pretty good show. So come on by, and we will be back next week. We will review UFC 326, and I believe we will preview. We will, in fact, preview UFC Fight Night 269. Don't say it. This is headlined by Josh Emmett and Kevin Vachejos. What else is on that card? We're at the warehouse. Yeah, we're at the warehouse. Ooh. Okay, what do we got? Amanda Lemos and Jillian Robertson. Meh. Kutalaba and C. Big meh. Andre Fili and Jose Delgado. Maybe. Marwan Rocky and Harry Hardwick. Whatever. Vitor Petrino and Steve Asplund. Do not care at all. Charles Johnson and Bruno Silva. That'll probably be all right. Blagioki and Manuel Souza, don't care. Luan Lacerda and Hector Souza, don't care. Or excuse me, Hector Souza. Bia Mesquita and Montserrat Rendon, that is a showcase for Bia Mesquita in all probability. Elijah Smith and Su Young Yu, that Smith's dynamic and Jiu-Jitsu can be slammed. Elijah Smith power bombed that other, I think it was Toshiomi Kazuma. Might see some wildness there. Piero Rodriguez and Sam Hughes is whatever. Brad Tavares and Eric Anders is two kind of over the hill guys. And Chris Curtis versus Mektabek Oralby. Oralby is almost always watchable, and I have a soft spot for Chris Curtis. So that one's definitely, that's a good one. So there's a lot of meh there. There's a couple of good fights. Vachejos and Emmett is going to be interesting. So we'll be giving that the full preview next week, but that's where we stand, everybody. So that's it for me. Yeah, I don't see anything else there in the chat, so I'm signing off. Thank you all very, very much for tuning in live after the fact, far in the distant future. If you time travel and send this back in time so people can, I don't know, gamble on the outcomes. Sports betting. Whatever. Happy to have you listening. Thank you all very, very much. I go late Sunday night / early Monday morning, depending on my schedule. And frankly, I should have had this one started earlier than I did, but life. So thank you very much again. Appreciate the heck out of you. I will see you next week. Until then, stay safe out there and remember to be well, be safe, and behave. See ya.